Welcome to the Gleeful Meeple, a podcast all about board games where strategy meets laughter and the scenic route can sometimes make more sense than the best play. In this episode, we're joined by a special guest to talk about the best ways to prepare for GenCon. We put on our hiking boots and get our walking sticks ready as we venture out to visit the national parks. In this week's game of the show, Parks. And you, the Gleeples, get to play along as the hosts get put in the hot seat with this week's game challenge. So get your water canteens ready, pack your best gear, and don't miss out on those photo opportunities because while everyone is a winner if you're enjoying nature, only one hiker will take home victory. Hey, fellow campers.
Hello, James.
Hey, James.
Hi.
What? Who's that?
Hello?
There's a new voice here. We have much to discuss. But
Yes.
first,
Guys, 10 episodes.
10 episodes.
10
This is
episodes.
episode X.
Double digits.
Crazy.
X. Who knows what happens on episode X?
We wanted to bring on a special guest for episode 10, but as JK said, before we get there, guess what?
What?
Can we introduce ourselves first?
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm
We're
Emily.
We're 10 episodes. Everyone knows us now, right? We're just...
That feels kind of arrogant.
Hey, guys, it's James.
I'm Emily.
And I'm JK, and I'm currently enjoying an Old Smoky Distillery salted watermelon whiskey. We are going adult for episode X.
And who's this mystery person we have with us?
Yeah.
And I'm Adam.
Hi,
and I
Adam.
don't have a lot of adjectives to add to that.
We are playing a man down today, sort of. We have a replacement player.
Replaced?
Yeah.
We have a man equal.
Yeah.
Man up.
Well,
So-
I defeated Dwayne in one-to-one combat.
There we go. So where is Dwayne?
Dwayne is taking part in a little event through Tennessee and North Carolina today, as are several members of the Gleeful Meeple community. We have a local business called McKay's, which is a used bookstore, movies, records, comic books, anything that kind of can be collected, sold, used, traded, including board games. McKay's is having their 50th anniversary tomorrow.
Tomorrow, which is in
July
the past
9th.
at this
yes,
point.
They had their 50th anniversary about 2 weeks ago, according to the listeners. And they're running a promotion where they're rewarding people for visiting as many McKay's locations as they possibly can, which is a total of 5 over the course of 2 states. Ultimately, if they do this all tomorrow during business hours, every member of the Gleeful Meeple crew that's out there is going to end up with $800 worth of store credits each, along with some little cursory prizes, a little snack pack, a poster, a t-shirt. So this is going to be a really cool thing. They've mapped it out. They figured out how many hours it's going to take them in travel time.
Yeah, this is multi-state.
Yeah.
So this is not a local thing in Nashville or in Tennessee even. We're crossing state lines here to make this happen.
Just driving alone, they're looking at somewhere between 8.5 to 9 hours. And that doesn't include any time they want to spend in the stores browsing or however long it's going to take in line to get processed, plus lunch, plus gas breaks. So I think they finally figured out with the time difference going from Eastern time zone into Central time zone, which was a wise move. They're looking at about 15 hours available time that they can do this in. So
I hope it goes very well for
Yeah.
them. And don't want to jinx it, but just in case I can't predict the future, I do hope at some point, I don't actually hope, but if they have a flat tire or something goes wrong and then they panic getting to the last store like The Amazing Race,
yeah.
I think it'd be a great adventure.
Very cinematic.
Yeah.
That was like my nightmare of the whole thing of doing this is what happens if they're coming back from Chattanooga, that location, and then all of a sudden there's like a major traffic jam accident that
That's what
stalls
it is
them.
on a Tuesday. I'm interested where they will be hitting
Rush
where
hour.
will they be at 5 p.m. on Tuesday? What rush hour are they about to get themselves into?
They have to start in Mebane, North Carolina, which honestly I had to look up on a map to figure out even where that is. They're then
Is that like an MC, but like a M-I-B?
Mebane.
Okay.
Mebane, North Carolina, and then going to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Knoxville, Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then home in Nashville.
Man, I take it we're all fans of McKay's.
Love McKay's. Great place.
Haven't been. Heard good things.
Wow.
I've already screwed up.
You enter into our podcast.
Yeah.
Man, McKay's, guys, if you haven't gone, it's a media, just smorgasbord. But for board games specifically, there's not a lot of places where you can get access to a huge, I wouldn't say a library, a huge
inventory
of used board games at sometimes amazing prices, sometimes perplexing prices. Yeah. But hobbyist board games and all the classics, but just a huge selection.
I think their system that they use for pricing is a little interesting. I think it's based on how often they get the product in and how quickly it turns around and sells. Mm-hmm. So for a game like Ticket to Ride, for example, Ticket to Ride I think sells for about $40 retail or so. We've seen Ticket to Ride as high as $60 in McKay's, which is not a deal.
No,
but I think it's because they get it in and sell it so quickly that they just keep kind of ramping up the price ever so slightly to see how far can they go before it stops selling.
Yeah. And it gets really weird, too. You'll have series like that, like Ticket to Ride. It doesn't matter if it's Europe or Japan or America. I think in their system, they just have Ticket to Ride.
And it's always the same price.
It's always the same price. Yeah. I got like a great deal on a special edition of a game because it was priced to the normal edition.
Yeah.
Because they don't keep track of that stuff. So you can catch them in some of those gaps sometimes, get some really good deals.
What's really good is when you get a game that's being sold there for the first time ever and they have no idea what it is. So you've got this super deluxe version that they're selling for $20.
There was one of those, a brand new Kickstarter game recently in Shrink that I knew what it was. It was a great deal. I just didn't want the game. I was like, why this game?
Yeah.
But the other nice thing about it is that it's used media, so you can also trade in your board games.
Yeah.
It's not just like trading in used CDs or books. You can trade in your board game. So if you need shelf space or you have a game you want to get rid of because you just don't play it anymore and you want some, they'll either give you store credit, which is the most value you'll get, or they'll give you lesser dollar in actual cash. So
cold hard cash.
We like McKay's, but they're not a sponsor, so let's quit talking about them right now.
All right.
So as much as we'd like to be in McKay's and as jealous as I am of doing that trip, I do have something else that will make me fill the gap and make you guys happy.
Is it a riddle?
It's a riddle.
We love
riddle
our
time.
riddles. Adam, you get to participate in our riddle as well.
Fair enough.
In the realm of tiles where wild things roam, 5 habitats together make their home. With there's some hands being raised already.
I got it.
Yep.
I thought it was appropriate for this episode. I'll keep going though. I'll keep going. With elk and salmon, bear and bird, foxes dart, unseen but heard. A forest dense, a river wide, a mountain high where creatures hide. Where hexagons meet and borders blend, a puzzle unfolds with each new bend. From grassy plains to ocean blue, each piece you place, a world anew. Strategic minds and nature's art combine to play this thoughtful part. What game do we play where nature is key, crafting a land from mountain to sea?
What listeners can't see is that we're recording this episode since we're not in Dwayne's house, which is our normal studio. We're in my house, which the game wall at my room is right behind James. And the game he is talking about, all of us are staring right at because it's right behind him.
Right behind him. Should we say it on 3?
Yes, on 3. 3, 2, 1.
Cascadia.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, I thought to make this one easy. I wanted to make it, kind of.
I know we've had some hard ones. Lately.
Yeah. No death haikus.
Yeah.
I feel like there should have been some sort of line about how confusing the Hawks are to score.
Yes.
That actually crossed when I was trying to think of interesting ways to present this to make it more difficult. The Hawks thing actually crossed my mind. I was literally picturing some of the cards with the arrows on it. That's like the Hawks in Cascadia are like the charge cubes in Space.
Yes.
It's that one thing where like this was a family-friendly, easy to understand game. Here's this weird thing that you just can't figure out.
That you just gotta read it over and over again until you finally understand it.
Yeah, and it only gets worse as you go up. The animals in Cascadia, you play them as sets: the A set, the B set, the C set, and it just gets more and more confusing as you go up those sets for the Hawks.
Yeah. So without Dwayne in the room, we have brought in Adam largely for his expertise on the next topic we want to talk about today.
Well, yes. Speaking of places some of you wish you could be at.
I'm jealous. Yes.
Yeah. I thought I'd start us off on that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What are we here to talk about, guys?
GenCon.
Should we say it on 3?
GenCon.
My bad.
GenCon.
No.
Adam is a semi-regular attendee of GenCon. How many years have you gone, Adam?
I have gone probably since 2018 with the
wow.
obvious
Exception.
exception.
Yeah.
Asterisk year.
Yeah, the asterisk year. the dark year or dark age. Yeah, I've been going pretty regularly and seen quite a lot of events.
Okay.
A lot of which the last couple of years have been some of the most interesting. Not always for nice ways, but it's always been a good time.
Okay.
So for all the...
Emily, have you been to GenCon before?
I have been.
You've been once.
My first time was last year, and I'm gearing up for my second year.
Okay. James?
I have not been to GenCon.
Not
yet.
been.
This is my first.
This is your debut.
That's right.
And sadly, you guys are flying without me. I'm not able to attend it this year.
Yep.
But before we dig into Adam's expertise, can we talk about some GenCon history?
All right.
Yeah.
What you got for us, JK?
Oh.
Well, before history, let me just get some context for the listeners.
Okay.
So, GenCon, if we haven't mentioned it, is a big board game convention. There's lots of them around America, around the world. Small local ones, more regional ones, all that kind of stuff. In terms of the ranks for GenCon, the biggest conventions in the world are, you have the Spiel, which is in Essen, Germany. That is the biggest in the world. And the second biggest is GenCon.
I think the Essen draws more than 6 figures in people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last year, GenCon brought in over 70,000.
Yep.
And then it just goes down from there. Origins is next, and then you get into regional. But that's how big of a deal a GenCon
But
is.
even Origins is a pretty big dip.
It is.
You're looking at like 20 to 30,000 at most.
Yeah, it drops fast.
Yeah.
What year was the first year that GenCon happened? Ooh.
Have they had an anniversary yet?
I was about to try and back calculate from
Yeah.
their 50th anniversary, which
That's
I think
old.
was last year.
It was recent. Yeah, I remember hearing about it.
So what's 2023 minus 50?
But it's changed names.
Quick maths.
It wasn't called GenCon originally.
Nope, it sure wasn't.
And it moved locations.
It sure
So
did.
are we saying Gen Con
when
or
did it
all of
start?
the names?
When was the initial convention that started the trend?
I want to guess a decade. Let's guess 50s.
Okay. James, you want to throw a guess out there?
Yeah, it's not that old. It's 70s, and I want to say 77.
Okay, so you're in the 50s. You're at 77. Adam, what do you think?
I'm going to say low 70s.
It made
73.
It
maybe.
made its debut in 1968 as the Lake Geneva War Games Convention.
That's
so
right.
Gen
War
comes from
Games.
Geneva. Lake Geneva is in Wisconsin, and from 1968 to 1971, it was shown there. It moved throughout the state of Wisconsin from 1972 through 1984 before landing in Milwaukee, where it had a long run from 1985 to 2002, and it has been in Indianapolis since 2003. As you mentioned, 70,000 people at the 2023. This is a significant step up from the first convention, which had 100 attendees. That's like a big Gleeful Meeple event.
That explains it. Something I didn't know about before. Their mascot is a red dragon named Genevieve.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Gen Con is not without controversy. So they did not have a good 2008. In 2008, they were actually sued by Lucasfilm. And part of this was that Lucasfilm was a co-sponsor because of the heavy Star Wars presence at Gen Con. There was allegedly a donation made to the Make-A-Wish Foundation that never arrived at Make-A-Wish. So Lucasfilm sued over fraudulent practices. During this year, Gen Con also filed for bankruptcy, but successfully came out of it in 2009. In 2008, they also did a $17,000 donation to the Children's Christian Fund, which was rejected by the Children's Christian Fund. They did not want to be involved with Gen Con.
Whoa.
They have since found other charities to support. Most recently, Indiana is a little bit of a conservative public area, and in 2015, they rolled out a policy that I think was largely crafted because there was a baker in Indiana that refused to do a wedding cake for a LGBTQ couple. The state basically said that was perfectly legal, and Gen Con sent a letter of protest over that. In 2022, Indiana made it illegal to have an abortion in their state. This was another thing that Gen Con protested and indicated that their contract with Indiana runs through 2026. and they might be looking at other locations to move to at that time.
And far away too. When those discussions happened, it's many states away as the current prospective location.
Oh,
maybe even Texas. I'm trying to remember.
Please put it in Nashville. We have a big Music City Center. That would be amazing.
I don't remember hearing that pop up, but
I don't think we have enough downtown hotel infrastructure to support that many people.
Really? As much as we have here? Wow.
Yeah. So great point, Adam. When it comes to GenCon, 70,000 people, you can imagine there's some logistics involved if you want to have a good time, right? This isn't just a convention center. This thing takes over the convention center and the connected Lucas Oil Stadium, an actual stadium, like sports stadium, and they set up tables inside and everything around. Cause those are kind of in the same block. They're almost not connected, but ish.
It's a domed football stadium, right?
And then everything around that, hotels, restaurants, just gets absolutely bombarded. And Adam is an expert in terms of kind of navigating a lot of what's going on, how to make sure you don't get, you don't waste time, you don't lose yourself amongst all of that. So those hotels can be brutal.
Yeah, getting a hotel in the block, their system is a bit new for some people. Anyone who buys a badge is placed into what's called the housing block lottery system. They're at some point before the event, they're assigned like a 15-minute window, and it's all just kind of random because that's the only fair way they could do it. You can't really rush in before your allotted server time. It's random, but fair to all. Some people just want a system where they get what they want, but
yeah. And all the hotels, from my understanding, are they partner in this system through the city's.
I forget the legal arrangement, but it's called a housing block, where when they build a hotel, they agree for certain events in the town.
X amount of rooms.
Correct.
For GenCon attendees.
Yeah. I believe the legal term is called a block. They'll block out a certain number of rooms out of their percentage, and they're, legally obligated to keep those available. So one of my first recommendations is if you try to go through a third-party site or a reservation through, I don't know, Airbnb or some other things, those can open up earliest, but they are the most risky because if something happened at the hotel, there's a fire, or they lose some of their rooms, those are the first ones that get canceled. I have heard some horror stories about that in the past. Some Airbnbs where you find what looks like a great deal, but then the person who's new to Airbnb realizes, I could get 5 times as much on this block, and I didn't know that. And then they just cancel it like a week or two beforehand.
I think that's actually what happened to me.
Really?
Because it's a lot of the Airbnb hosts sometimes require you to put your reason for coming to the area. And before I tell the rest of the story, when does this housing portal usually take place? Like the convention's in August, and it was February, I believe.
It was months ago.
Yeah. So this happens months in advance. So picture me, housing portal did not go well for me in February. And so I immediately start looking for Airbnbs because I'm impatient and I just want to find something. Months out in advance, I put in my reason. I was like, hey, some friends and I are going to GenCon this year. I get a return message almost an hour later being like, oh, actually, I was supposed to black these days out. Sorry. And just cancel the reservation. So part of me did have half a mind to go back and search up that reservation later to see if it was actually
came back in at a higher rate.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
that's shady.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I've had a few scenarios where, just looking for Airbnbs, I feel like something else happened. And then Airbnb has just been interesting in the most recent past few years anyway. Similar thing. I was wanting to get another Airbnb in case we might get a 5th person join us. And I found one that was cheaper than the reservation I had. Free cancellation up until July 26th. So I was like, let's go for it. And then I get another message back an hour later and it's sorry, we already have the space booked. And I'm like, how? It was, the dates were fine. So that might have been like 2 requests on the same day, and they just went with the other person than me. Or just like, I don't know. But yeah, like so that happens in February. And like if we go chronologically when preparing for a con, in order to get to the housing portal, like you said, Adam, like you have to get a pass. And those usually go on sale, like a month or 2 before the housing portal thing happens?
I believe badges go on sale in January. I did look it up. Housing registration was February 25th.
25th. Okay. So you're talking about like if you're interested in GenCon, you can basically start planning for it as early as January.
I'll give my example. I booked my hotel reservation directly with the hotel. I don't take chances on the housing portal if I can avoid it, and I do pay extra for that, but what can you do? I got mine in, I want to say November.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, it's never too soon to start, like, refreshing the page and seeing what's available.
So go ahead, James.
I asked around because this is my first one, and I was trying to, like, I've heard this is crazy. So I was like, this housing portal, why can't I just call the hotel directly and book? And in multiple gaming communities I'm a part of, they all say, no, really, the portal's the best way to do it because if you don't, you risk your room being canceled or given away or this or that. But you booked in November and got a room, and there's no fear about it being swept out from under you or anything like that?
It's a possibility, but I think it'll be fine. It worked well the year before. I've been lucky so far.
Is that the agreement maybe that GenCon has with the hotels, that if they book through GenCon, it's locked that you get it?
Well, it's a matter of priority. So the hotel has to block out, again, like we said, enough rooms. If something happens, there's a flood or a wing of the place burns down, my reservation would be the one that's canceled before one in the housing block.
Gotcha.
It's also easier to move around within the housing block without losing your space.
Yeah. And so when Adam's describing that, when you book through the housing block, it is a GenCon controlled logged in portal that you go to that gives you access to all the hotels. Mm-hmm. So you're not logging into the hotel's website or anything like that. And once you're in there, you can move things around.
Adam, what should people expect on their first day of GenCon? What are they walking into?
Man, so many vendors showing off the new games and so many game developers trying to get their name out there. So some people get a little sticker shock by doing tickets for events.
Okay.
I feel like we'll probably segue to that topic again after that. But one of the places I like to check out is called the Playtest Hall. It's where the economic arrangement is kind of different. You don't actually have to pay for a ticket there. The vendors who are trying to playtest their new games or show off their new games will accept anyone who shows up.
Will they have like the actual game creators there as well to talk about things?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I was wanting to talk about in some of my notes, one of my favorite, how do I describe it? One of the favorite events I've had is meeting the people kind of behind the scenes, the names behind the games that you don't, really know, even though they're on the box. JK, how many game designers of your favorite games can you name?
A dozen-ish, maybe.
Oh, that's fair.
That's better than me.
That was a bad. Yeah, you know
what?
Yeah,
you're asking a board game.
Yeah, you're right. I picked the wrong end of the room. I should have pointed at one of y'all.
I was going to say a dozen-ish probably.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, it's where a lot of those designers will be, and you can stop by your favorite vendor booth and see who's there. One of my favorite games is Marvel Legendary. I really wish Dwayne was here to talk about it a bit because I know it's his favorite game too. There is, I don't know how much I should talk about the game beforehand, but there is a bystander called the Dog Show Judge.
Okay.
If that rings a bell, I don't know if you've played this game before.
Ages ago. It's no longer in my collection.
How do I quickly? You play a bunch of heroes. You're trying to defeat the mastermind, and one of the key game mechanics is you rescue bystanders, some of which have special names.
And they can be like victory points at the end of the game.
Yep. And I don't know how much they do this now, but a lot of the bystanders that they name are staff members, people who won contests or Kickstarters, that. And the Dog Show Judge is named Simon. Oh, jeez.
Cowell?
No. Song Puti. He was one of the judges working at the vendor booth. And one of my favorite experiences was getting to meet this guy. We were playing in a legendary tournament. And at one point during the tournament, they had a side gig or side game goal of whoever rescued the dog show judge got a little extra prize. And the cutest thing happened when the dog show judge card was rescued. Simon came and grabbed it and showed it to his parents who were there. I didn't understand what they were saying because they were speaking, because I didn't know what language it was, but it looked like they were talking about how proud they were, I hope, is what was being said. And then they hugged afterwards. And it was just a very sweet moment of meeting someone behind the scenes like that.
And when you're meeting people at the vendor booths, a lot of the designers, a lot of the people that are heads of the companies, bear in mind, folks, they're going to be there all week long. They're going to have person after person coming up and telling them how much they love their game and how much they appreciate everything they're done. If you want to stand out from the crowd, go to those game designers and say, man, your game sucks.
Especially on Sunday.
Yeah.
The last day.
Well, call their game a ripoff of some other
there
game.
You go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Following your advice, JK, should you also tell them that their rules are wrong?
Oh, Ryan's going to the convention, so Ryan is going to go up there and go, oh, hey, I kind of liked your game, but your rule book really needs some
I wasn't
work.
going to name check him, but if we're going to go there, we're going there. No, that's meeting people. That was one of, I think, a feature almost that I kind of took for granted last year that as we're getting closer, I'm starting to kind of look into, I picked my events, which we'll get to. We'll talk about events in a moment. But last year they were demoing Terraforming Mars, the dice game. And so I actually got to meet members of the Frixelius family last year. And whenever they do a demo, you get split up into the games and they teach the rules to everyone at once. And so we're playing and Jacob Frixelius is watching our game. And I did a move and he'd be like, it'd be better if you did blah, blah, blah.
Oh no.
And so it can be nerve wracking, but it's so fun meeting game designers. Cause it's there's no judgment. It's just he's just informing me. He didn't look down on me. He was just oh no, but you can do blah, blah, blah if you just go somewhere else. I'm
What's even better is doing a move.
He wasn't looking down on you, but
I choose to believe.
Fair enough. Yeah.
What's even better is doing a move and having one of them be like, I didn't consider that.
Now, when you're preparing for going into a hall like that, or just let's just say the large vendor hall, is there anything that it's massive, right? I mean, it's miles of walking to get around this thing.
I did the math. It will take you 2.1 miles of walking to explore, just to walk by every booth in the vendor hall.
Do you have your own personal strategy that leading up to GenCon to help you kind of do you plan a route ahead of time? Are you printing out the map and tracing it out? What's your mode of attack on that vendor hall?
My method is pretty lighthearted, in I have maybe one or two booths that I want to see. Here's the new expansion that's coming out this year. I'll stop by and pick that up. I honestly don't buy as many board games regularly as some of the people in the room, so just buying the newest game isn't really...
I felt that hatred. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fair.
I felt the love.
Yeah, it's there.
I got to buy double this year because JK is not.
Because I'm not doing it, yeah.
The hatred loves being acknowledged. But this is a whole conversation about traffic flow is something important to keep in mind, especially that 10:30... Is it 10 or 10:30 a.m. when the hall opens up?
That first day.
Every day. The videos of the surge of people flowing into the room is it kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yes. I would say the way I kind of treat it or try to think about it is think about driving through downtown traffic. Each of the booths is like a downtown store that has one row of parking on each side. You got 6 lanes total for 6 people's widths. That's not a standard unit of measurement, but that's fine. You got one. If there's no parking by the booth that you're at, what you should not do is stop in the middle of the travel lane.
Yeah.
Because if you do that and then the person next to you also does that, it creates very big traffic flows. Maybe just loop around, come back to that booth later when things are less hectic.
What do you do if the person who decided to cosplay as Optimus Prime is parked right in front of your booth and you need to get around him?
Oh boy.
That's where you hope it's one of those booths that actually have seating area in them.
Root for Megatron, I
Fair.
suppose.
Just kind of sneak up behind him and hit him with an Autobots rollout and just see if he moves.
That's fair. I mean, the cosplayers usually don't do that. The ones in the really big cosplay will be on presentation out in the bigger main halls.
Okay.
Not necessarily in the vendor hall.
Yeah.
And then they'll remove their disguise and go check out whatever vendor hall they need.
But you might run into people buying games, picking up stuff within the vendor hall. So sometimes you do have to avoid kind of like a board game bag here and there.
Yeah.
Or like those
Smacking
big,
you.
like, yeah.
Those huge backpacks.
People with the backpacks do get a lot of hate. I think it's fair. It's worse if they don't respect the flow of traffic when they have a backpack. Because in that previous example, if you turn and block 2 lanes, it's
just like
worse.
Fodder for controversy always in the subreddit.
That sounded so nerdy.
Oh, you're in a Reddit. I don't go that
The
dark.
GenCon Reddit. There's a GenCon Facebook page, all this stuff. But there's sometimes people get kind of grumpy about like wheelchairs or strollers or whatever. And it's just like, let them live, like let them exist. They need those to enjoy themselves at a con. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like with the flow of the traffic is the flow of the traffic.
Yeah. If you're meeting a group of friends, don't like stop in the middle of the main intersection. Find a nice side road.
The vendor hall, probably.
Yeah. Well, find a nice quote unquote side road or quote cul-de-sac. The analogy is starting to fall apart.
I know one of the things that kind of came out of last year's Gen Con was the lineup for people getting into Lorcana and getting to buy Lorcana.
Oh,
I didn't know if you were going to bring that up.
What, Adam, in your opinion, other than the hot game of the moment, how bad are the lines at Gen Con?
Lorcana was a very bad impression and very beyond the norm. I don't know if to blame Disney or there's a whole story I don't really know if we want to get into the weeds of that incident on this podcast, but that was very beyond the norm.
Okay.
You should not expect that again. There'll be a little of it. There'll be a better managed line this year, I suspect. I don't know if Lorcana is having any like major releases, but I think the appropriate people learned the lessons that they needed to learn.
Like if I walked into the vendor hall thinking, oh, I've got to go get this new game that Cryptozoic just came out, is there going to be a line at Cryptozoic's booth to get me in?
Some of the vendor booths do have developed short lines, but they're usually not that bad. I've usually never had to wait in line for more than a couple minutes for something.
Okay.
Anyone who's just going to a booth to buy something early on in the day knows what they're getting. They just grab it and go for a lot of the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean to the point of that, like the hot games will usually have the lines right in the morning. And if you want something that's really hot, it's coming out at Gen Con, it's releasing, a lot of times publishers will have limited quantities that they sell per day. It's not limited quantities total. It is, so they don't all sell in the first day.
That's helped to break up the line a little bit.
So they sell them out per day, and then they open it back up the next day.
Okay.
But if you wanted to avoid that crazy early rush, on the opening day, and you wanted to find something else to do instead, if you weren't worried about rushing out to get the hottest game, if you beat everybody else there first, that's probably a good time to do something that's not in the exhibit hall.
Yeah.
I know events are pretty popular. We've mentioned it a few times.
Events. What are events?
Well, real quick before we get off this topic, I just want to say, pro tip, if you do find yourself in a line unexpectedly, pro tip, adult diapers. They're not just for senior citizens.
Are they a sponsor?
Maybe in the future episode.
All right.
I don't know.
When did
it
Big
depends.
Diaper get to you, Jake?
But I'm kid size, so would it just be a normal diaper?
Nobody's going to touch on the fact that I just said it depends.
JK, I'm just
that's a deep
chomping
joke.
at the bit to talk about events.
Okay, let's go on to events.
Adam, what kind of events does Gen Con have?
Anything else that you can kind of think of. There are events to play any type of board game, tournaments for any type of board game, tabletop RPG events. miniature painting, miniature sculpting. Some of the events, like crazy cosplay, like classes, I guess isn't the right word, but some of them are like learn how to sculpt with PVC pipe or use a forge, or I don't even know how they got that into the vendor hall, but it's there.
Knife throwing.
There is knife throwing.
That's an event.
I did notice that
learn
this
how
year.
to throw a knife.
And then there's also
I am terrified of that prospect there.
Yep.
there's also seminars.
Yes, many seminars from big titans in the industry of GMs, game designers, improv classes.
Oh, yeah, because there's also just like entertainment. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you talk about, I think if you could kind of divide them up, you got your board games, you got your RPG-esque events.
Is there a
entertainment,
video game presence
and
here as well?
craft. There is an electronic game.
A few years ago, they
types
had
of
like
events.
a arcade room where they had a bunch of like retro games set up.
They have those set up in a hallway last year.
They had pinball machines
Yes,
last
yes.
year, and
Okay,
some, but
that's
there
what I'm
was
thinking
there
of.
was a couple years ago. It wasn't there last year, I don't think, but there was like some sort of company that their whole shtick is that they travel around with classic console games, like Atari old.
ColecoVision and television, stuff like that.
Yes, and they have those set up in a room, and you get like pay to go in for 2 hours.
So, for James, our newbie, who probably already knows this because he's done some research and we've been signing up for events since they've been available, what is some advice for people that are newer to GenCon? Like, what kind of events, how do they go about picking events?
Ooh. I mean, most people, I hope just pick whatever you like, whatever it is that you like to do. There is some sort of event, board game or tabletop RPG related that you could do that's about that topic. I do have a friend that loves Shadowrun. It's a tabletop RPG and he never gets to play it. He spends like 12 to 18 hours of his convention time just playing Shadowrun games. And he has a blast every year.
That's a really good point. Like, yeah, these kind of conventions are great for kind of like hitting, not the blind spots of your playing, but the just rare moments of like your gameplay where it's like if you can't get it at home, get it at the convention.
You want to play a legacy game over the course of 3 days? I mean, you can do
Go
that.
for it.
Play the Twilight Imperium. Like, just spend a day playing that. It's an option.
You want to learn the choreography from a Newsies dance number? You can do that.
That's
too.
what some of those.
You
some of
guys
those
signed up for that too,
craft
right?
Classes. No,
Yeah.
I did not.
I can't tell whether you're joking or not here.
But
I'm looking at it right now.
Oh my
I
gosh.
signed up to learn.
I know I'm
some
like
dance
double checking my events.
numbers from the Newsies.
They also have like fitness classes. So there was one that's like Star Wars, like Jedi yoga, Sith core classes,
It's not Yoda. It's yoga.
It's yoga.
yoga.
Uh-huh.
And there's a third one, but it's all Star Wars related fitness classes, which is kind of neat. So you can just go take an hour to go stretch and then go back to the chaos of it all.
Yes, I would say planning some of your events. Don't have 2 events back to back that are on opposite sides of the convention hall because you'll hate running. Start walking now while you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
You will be
No, that is a
walking
good tip.
several miles every day. Have a good set of shoes. If you show up in flip
Some
flops,
water.
you'll pass away.
So I guess to that point, you'd recommend when you're looking at your events, it's not just about the times, but you probably also want to have the convention map laid out or pulled up so you can track where it all is. Like it takes some serious planning sometimes, I guess is what you're saying, to really make sure that you're not like falling through a hole somewhere and don't realize
After
it.
a couple of years, you'll know like which hall is where and where it's about. A lot of the places are pretty well labeled. But yeah, I'd say that's a good plan.
That's what, like, I think some advice for my first year self that I followed was like, don't try to do too many things. Like, I signed up for 3 events total, not 3 in one day, 3 the entire con, and I had a blast. It was like I got to spend a lot of time in the vendor hall. I got to spend a lot of time with my friends, just kind of like people watching. Like Adam mentioned, like there is a cosplay aspect of the con. So that's kind of fun to just walk around and see what you can find. And our friends, like, we were all in one hotel. Sometimes, like, the hotels will have just open play areas. So you can bring a few of your games to the convention and get some friends together and just play in, like, the ballroom of whatever hotel you're in. There's some of those open play areas in a few of the hotels downtown.
Adam, is there one piece of advice you would want to share with listeners that we haven't covered?
No, I'd rehash the walking thing. Like, if you don't think you can walk like 10 miles per day, like, schedule like some paced out sit down events.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you'll appreciate like 3 hours of sitting for a board game after like 3 hours of perusing the vendor hall. Try to pace yourself. You got a couple of days. It's not going to take you that long to see everything, but there's always so much more to find the next year.
Folks, I'm going to put this out there. I've made some snarky comments about what to do at the event, but here these are legit. So you're going to be in a room, in a building, in an event with 70,000 other people. There's going to be scantily clad, dressed women. There's going to be people of all walks of life. Be respectful. Be nice to people. Treat them like you would want to be treated, and you'll get the most out of that convention. The other piece of advice I would give... I've been in a gaming group for a long time.
I know where you're going.
And I'm just going to say this.
I know where you're going.
I know there are people that are allergic to items in deodorant, and I have a lot of respect for you people and the struggles you're going through. But folks, soap, shower, daily basis, please, please, please.
Yes, it's much appreciated.
All right. Thank you, Adam.
And if you see your favorite podcaster in the room,
You
treat them
won't.
however you want to be treated. Like go ahead and trample them, tackle them, say hi, and tell them you listen to the show and you love them, kiss them all over the face.
But JK,
You're
you're
not
not
gonna
going
be
to
there,
I won't be there. I'm setting you guys up for failure. Hey.
Please don't kiss us all over the face.
So we hope you feel a little bit more prepared for GenCon, if not going this year, maybe a future year. But our game of the show today is Parks. Emily, can you tell us a little bit more about Parks?
Yes, Parks is published by Keymaster Games and designed by Henry Audubon. Parks was published in 2019, and BGG has Parks as most gleeful at 3 players. JK, how do you play Parks?
Parks is really cool. Each player in the game is given 2 hikers that are going to navigate down a modular path. Where they choose to have their hikers land is going to be whether they get water, mountain tiles, forest tiles, sun tiles, or even animals, which are wild, or photography tiles, which are a little bit of a scoring element in the game. The idea behind this game is very simple. You can send your hiker as far down the path as you like, but they can never go backwards. They can only continue to go forwards, which kind of limits your progress. In addition, you can only go to a portion of the trail where no one else resides. You do have some options to mitigate that. You have a campfire, which you can douse one time once you go to a space where another hiker is, and then maybe eventually charge that, but that's fairly limited. So you're trying to figure out how to juggle these 2 hikers on down the path, all the while you're collecting resources, using those resources to visit national parks, which are going to give you the scoring at the end of the game, and getting to the end of the board. You'll also get gear. You'll get those photography bonuses throughout the game. There's several different ways to score, but overall it's a simple process. Work your way down the path, get as much as you can, and get to the end over the course of 4 rounds.
Sounds pretty simple.
That's Parks.
So, what did you guys think?
Man, when this game came out, I can see why it was so popular and really still is. I mean, let's start off with the production. Oh, it looks so good.
Yeah.
It's so pretty.
It's so great.
is
I mean,
so pretty.
not just the art, but just all the components. They put money into this, and this is a great example of a game that has great production, great art, great presentation, and doesn't break the bank.
You could take any of the artwork that's on those cards that reflects the national parks.
Put it up on your wall.
Put it up on your wall. They're beautiful.
That's what there are prints for sale. 59 Parks are the people that behind the design, like the art of Parks, and follow their Instagram account. Like, just banger after banger of an Instagram post. It's so pretty.
This was a pleasant surprise when I added this to my collection because it's a small box game. It's only probably about 8 inches by 8 inches, not very big. The component quality is fantastic. It comes in little game trays, containers. The art is great. Other than the fact that, go back a few episodes where I complained about sleeving cards and kind of changing the dimensions of the storage. Yeah, that kind of happened with this one. Mm-hmm. Take that out of the mix, though. This is a beautiful, high-quality game for a very low price.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I like about it is when you start playing this game, JK mentioned that you go through a path. You go down this trail, and then you get to the end of it. You do that 4 times through 4 seasons, and that path changes each time slightly. There's new tiles
and
get added to
adds more each season.
So it gets longer.
And doesn't just replace it, it actually gets longer. Yeah, Emily. But what's really nice about it is that once you play through one session, you have 3 more, and the game doesn't change how it plays. So if everyone you're playing with, even if they're brand new players, once you get through one season, really even just the first few turns, but guaranteed after that first season, it's very unlikely somebody will get lost later on in the game and forget a rule or forget this or need help. Right. It just makes sense. And it's because you're kind of doing the same thing 4 times in a row, but each time is slightly different, and each time builds on what you've done in the previous, walking through the trails. So you kind of get some engine building there a little bit, but it doesn't ever get overcomplicated and just really easy to understand. And I think that's why it fits so well in both that family game space, but also offers enough for gamers and variability because it changes each round to keep it interesting.
And each turn you can buy gear for your hikers, which are kind of like game breakers. They're going to allow you to modify the rules a little bit or maybe give you a discount on different parks when you're buying those areas. That creates an imbalance. So now all the players are working with asymmetrical powers more or less throughout the game as well.
Which is a nice addition. I was watching a game being played where someone was just going after gear after gear after gear. And it was one of those where like the gear had an amazing synergy that allowed the person to get park after park after park. And visiting the parks is kind of where you're getting the most of your points in the game. Each player might have a kind of like personal year end bonus where like it's just a secret goal to you, but you're going to get max 3 points from that goal. Whereas if you just focus on whatever parks you can get, you might just visit like 5 parks that are worth 4 points each and just rack up a bunch of points that way.
Yeah. Dice Tower, on one of their shows when they talked about different game mechanisms, they addressed the move as far forward on the path as you like, but you can't go backwards. Is there a name for that? They came up with a name for it, but has that ever been defined what you call that?
No, not outside of what they named it, and it I forget what it's called now.
They called it the ratchet system.
Yes. Yeah. And that was almost, it's slightly like this. It's also the ratchet system. They called it that because it's the other version of this is that the person in the last always gets to go first. That's not parks.
No, yeah.
But that's the other version of this, right? Both versions, you move forward as far as you want-ish, depending on the game. But the ratchet version is where the person in the last gets to go first. And the idea of the ratchet being that it closes the gap.
Yeah.
Right? Because ratchets close gaps. And so they use it to describe more specifically that version of the system. But this is kind of a takeoff of that. I don't know what this is actually technically called.
Yeah.
BGG has it listed as track movement, but that kind of seems like to be an umbrella term that would kind of like encapsulate what you guys have been describing, because track movement is just pieces that are moved along a linear track, but doesn't necessarily, like as BGG says, not necessarily straight. It may turn, curve, or loop. And so their like examples include classic roll and move games. So it's kind of like track movement. But that's what trails, a related game to parks. They limit your movement. It's a similar thing where you can only move in one direction, but you can only go 1 or 2 spaces at a time. And you douse your campfire. I don't think it's a campfire. It's something else. I think it's a canteen and trail. You can use your canteen and trails to move any amount of spaces forward Whereas parks, like the limitation is you use the canteen to share a space. That doesn't exist in trails. And I know I just mentioned trails without even explaining it. I think of it as a related game. You have think of Terraforming Mars and Terraforming Mars, the dice game. I just feel like the dice game is more kind of like a streamlined version. It's still thematically like Terraforming Mars. Trails, I feel like it's a more streamlined version of parks. They have their own kind of instead of visiting a park, you can earn badges. Think about the Scouts badges.
Same designer, same manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, literally all the same people. And so I think of trails. I like trails actually for our events too, because I feel like it's easier to teach and easier for people to grasp. You have 3 types of resources and that's it. And they're all cubes. But yeah.
The compelling element for me for this game, and I think this came up several times during our play and frustration over what to do, is not only are you working along this path in a linear progression, you can only go forward, you can't go back, but you have 2 hikers. So you can have one that's halfway down the path, and then you start to debate, okay, do I pull in the other one now? Do I bring him out to spot 1 or 2, or do I continue to scoot this guy forward? And there's a lot, I don't know
that is the decision space.
Yeah, I don't know that this game is necessarily designed with hate placement in mind, but
you sure can.
Oh, you sure can.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Oh, I got royally screwed on one of these, and I will say I've played this game a number of times, and it's never happened before. But as JK mentioned, you can't go on to spots other people are on unless you have a campfire to burn, and then once it is burned, there's a way to recharge it. But I had used my campfire, so I wasn't able to burn it. And things had worked out when it got back around to my turn just so.
No available spaces.
No available spaces.
Yeah.
Literally, there was a person on every single spot of the trail.
Unless you launched all the way down the trail to pretty much the end.
The very last space or the last space. I literally had no other. my guy was on spot 1 or 2 of the trail of 7 or 8. Mm-hmm. And I had to skip all the way down to the end, which listeners, is not a good place to be.
That's not a strategy,
right? You want to stop a few times along the path every single time to get resources and do things and play the game.
Yeah.
So, somehow it's never happened before, but literally every space was covered. Outside of that, that's never happened before. I always feel like I have flexibility in this game.
That's what I really like. It's super fascinating. I haven't quite figured it out, but I feel like this game has limitation built in, I feel like, everywhere. You're limited to where you can move because a player might be there. You're super limited in time. Like JK said, you can only move forward. So if you have to pass over a spot, you have to pass over a spot. You don't get that opportunity. You have 4 turns total. Those advanced sites that come out later with each season, they might come out in a super opportune place within the trail. They might not. And you might not even get to take advantage of them. Usually that really frustrates me with a lot of games where I feel like there's no flexibility. I think that's what a lot of worker placements bother me. Because it's okay, well, I can't go to that spot, so now my entire strategy is ruined. For something about parks, it doesn't bother me. I really like that aspect of it. And part of me thinks if it's just the parks theme, I just got back from a 2-week trip to Colorado, loved it. I have the hiking bug again. I just want to go outdoors all the time and visit all these national parks that I'm seeing in my games.
Well, I think what JK was saying, the compelling piece of this game, for me, it kind of speaks to that, is within those restrictions, because there are those restrictions. I mentioned a moment ago that there's a flexibility. You have 2 people, you have your campfire, you have your water canteen, which gives you more flexibility. Outside of that rare case that I ran into, I kind of always feel like there's opportunity for you to do something on your turn that will help, even around those restrictions. And it's never that frustrating, but that's why I always caught myself thinking, right? That was the decision space. That was the tension space of which, do I use the campfire? Do I start my second person now that I'm halfway through with my first person? And that's the fun decision space and tension there. And I never felt frustrated while playing it. And the theme does help. It is a very pleasant game.
I'll tell you where you guys killed me. And one thing we haven't talked about is when your hikers reach the end of the trail end, there's three options. Yeah, there's three options you can go to. You can go down the path where you get to visit a park. And if you have all the available resources, you then pay those to get the park, and that enters your collection, and that's where scoring comes into play. You can buy gear, which is how you upgrade and get those special bonuses. The third one is called reserving a park. And that's where you take an existing park that's on the board and you just put that in your collection. You haven't scored it yet. You haven't done anything with it. You might not have the materials to actually claim that park in the long run, but you're taking it off the board and preventing another player from getting it. Oh my God, you guys did that to me so many times during the game.
Sniped it out from under you.
Yes, you were killing me.
Well, and the first person to go to that space is also gets the first player marker.
Yeah.
So the first player may change each round.
Yeah. Yep. So that's how first player gets chosen is, when we get to the end of the trail, you can choose of those three options. And if you're the first person to choose that one, you get it, which is also worth a victory point at the end if you have it at the end of the game.
We don't have Dwayne here to talk about his opinions on the game, but he'll touch base with us on the. Or did you get his feedback?
I
you
got
got his feedback. Yay!
So yes,
Was it on the? Did he call in on the Glee phone?
It's the Glee phone.
We left a voicemail from the Glee phone, but unfortunately the audio got all
garbled,
warped. Yeah. So Dwayne, he said it's a game with fantastic art, so he agrees with us on that wonderful theme. But he says, and this is a good transition to our negatives, it overstays its welcome by a couple of turns. And I can't say the rest of it yet.
Okay.
So negatives. Dwayne thinks it overstays its welcome. What do you guys think?
I don't think so. I mean, I felt we I thought it was a fairly, I won't say quick playing game, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, we have one more round to go. Like, I thought it went at a pretty good pace. It is available on Board Game Arena, and I've played both, and I think it kind of plays at similar speed, actually. Sometimes BGA speeds things up. I don't know that it really does,
especially
for the most part.
Season reset, I think, is where it probably cuts the most amount of time.
Yeah, the season reset. But the actual playing, because it's kind of the same round after round after round, players get into a groove and it just kind of moves, whether you're playing in person or online. So I don't know. I didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome.
So worth noting, because Emily was on vacation last week and playing remotely from Colorado, we did play this on BGA as a foursome. And I have shared my feelings already about BGA and how much I don't enjoy the format. While it did make it an easier play, we were all on camera. We were watching each other. We could see each other's faces. I don't know if you guys picked up on this or not, but probably by season 2, I was playing solitaire. I kind of tuned out, was a little bit bored. So the format of how we played probably drove a little bit of a negativity on this environment. But that said, I own this game. I've played it several times. I'm fairly familiar with it. I will admit that it probably wasn't until round 2 or so that I went, what do the photos do again? So I don't know if you caught at the end of the game, I had 0 photos. That scoring didn't help me at all. I don't really, for the game itself, other than my small critique of when you sleeve the cards, they don't fit in the box anymore. I don't have any negatives on this one.
Yeah, I don't either. I own this game. I love this game. I have an expansion. I don't know. I think, like we said, it's part of the theme. I get stressed out about the limitations sometimes, but I just so enjoy the mechanics and just the gameplay that, like, spoiler alert, I did not win this game, even though I brought it to us to play. I just enjoy, like, okay, what parks am I going to try to visit this time? Like, okay, how good am I at resource collecting this time? I just enjoy, like, this is one of those rare games where I'm like, if I win, I win. Cool. Like,
well, so to that point, I'll say one of my, you could almost call it a negative if you're just really into wanting a strategy game. When I come into this game, I don't care if I win or lose for the most part. Like, yes, there's strategies you can approach, the gear strategy or go all park strategy. There's things you can do, but
But so much of it, I think, has to be on the fly.
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
reacting to what's
you're doing a lot of
happening.
reacting, and I don't go into this like really like getting annoyed if a strategy didn't work or failed. Like, oh, that was a pleasant experience. I got some parks. I visited. You know, I don't leave feeling annoyed. So that could be a negative if you're wanting a strategic experience.
Did you complete your endgame bonus?
I did.
Did you complete your endgame bonus?
I completed the lower level, not the higher level.
I got the higher level too. That may be my one complaint on the game is I don't feel those are terribly effective.
No, they're not. It's only 3 points.
Yeah.
Every time I teach it, I'm like, this is a guiding point to your strategy, but it may not actually help you. Because like there are some of the year-end bonuses where it's like visit parks with like 10 water. So like 10 water total. So it's like if you visited 5 parks and each park that you visited had 2 waters each, you've completed that goal. If there are no parks coming out with water on them, you're not getting that year-end bonus, and so you have to switch strategies. So I tell people, year-end bonus is there. It's a guideline.
Yeah.
Now, I will be Dwayne's advocate since he's not here, and kind of give a counterpoint to a point I was making earlier about, you know, the fact that you're doing the same thing 4 times, same thing-ish 4 times in a row is good to keep the game moving, but that might be what Dwayne's thinking about when he's saying, that it outstays its welcome.
Fair.
It's not the length of it. It's just that you're kind of doing the same thing 4 times with some modifications. Yes, there's some engine building. Yes, there's some new tiles, but it feels kind of samey. So, but other than that, I mean, for my final thoughts on the game, if y'all want to move into that,
let's do it.
For me, it's a keep it to play.
Yeah.
It's easy to get to the table. It's pleasant. It is great for new gamers if you're trying to be welcoming to new players because it just makes sense. And I'm always open for playing it.
All right. Dwayne said he would like to keep it to play because he has not played anything quite like it, and it's great for camping trips. And I would have to agree. I'm going to keep it to play. I love the theme. It gets me in an outdoorsy mood every time, and I'm looking forward to bringing it out in the winter months.
Yep. It's in my collection. I've got an expansion for it as well. As I said, it's a beautiful game. It's simple to teach. It's simple to play. It's a keeper for sure. 4 out of 4.
We did it.
We did it, guys.
Woo.
All right.
And, you know, we all sang high praises for this game, but our gentleman that is not here today was the one that kicked our tushes at this
Beat our
game.
butts.
Yes.
So, since he's not here, we decided that we will play a cooperative game. Since we won't have a specific winner of the cooperative game, we'll talk about this game on our next episode, and Dwayne will be able to pick the next game when he comes back. But JK, what is the cooperative game that we will be playing?
The cooperative game we are going to delve into is Cthulhu. Ooh. Death May Die.
I love this game so much. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
So, I think we've talked enough about games that it's time to play a game on air.
Woo-hoo!
No, not a board game. A game about board games.
What?
This week, I have somehow managed to get a hold of Dwayne's game collection. While the cat is away, the mice will play, as they say. So, hosts.
If you have his collection, can I have some of the good ones?
Yeah, can you share it?
I am so glad you
Is it in
asked.
your car? You fit it all in your car?
It is technically all in my laptop, but we are going to play a little game I call Own, Play, Burn.
It's back.
It is back. It was featured on our Instagram account a while ago, and now I'm bringing it to the host. So, out of Dwayne's collection, I got my hands on 26 games. I am going to give each host, myself included, just 3 games, and you're going to have to pick of those 3 games, which one are you going to own? Which one are you going to burn? And which one are you going to play? All right, JK?
I could make an adult conversation about the fact that this is episode X, but no, we're not going to do that.
No, we're not going to do that. All right, JK.
All right.
Your 3 games. Puerto Rico, Lacrimosa, and Sagrada.
Okay, I think this is an easy answer. So I have, at one time, owned all 3 of these games. I currently own 2 of them. So the one that we are going to kill, what's kill?
Burn.
Burn. We're going to burn it. We're going to burn Puerto Rico. That is going to leave my collection.
Oh.
It's fine. It's a nice game,
To
and
be
it's
fair, it's
entertaining.
not your collection. This is Dwayne's collection.
I know.
we're handling.
It's a fine game. It's
We're burning Dwayne's games.
It suffers from the same problems for me that original Castles of Burgundy does, in that while the game mechanics themselves are wonderful, it is just such a slog to look at this game. It's not very exciting. But that means, where am I going to put the other two? Sagrada is a great family weight game with a lot of fun behind it. It's colorful. It's got great components. Lacrimosa, fairly new to my collection. I think I've only got 2, maybe 3 plays under my belt for it, but the subject matter is fantastic. The way that engine runs is great. I'm going to go with keep Lacrimosa, play Sagrada, burn Puerto Rico.
Ooh.
You chose correctly. Congratulations.
Yeah.
All right, James. Your first game, Bang the Bullet, Grand Austria Hotel, and Welcome to the Moon.
Can we burn 2?
Bang.
Oh,
Bang
Just
the
one.
Bullet? I know there's
Yes.
Bang the Dice game.
I think it's the precursor to
there's
Bang
just-
the Dice game.
There's just Bang, right?
This is essentially Bang. It comes in a bullet, and I think
The,
it has...
the bullet tin.
Yes,
yeah.
I was like, you've
Yep.
seen this. I
I've
know.
seen it. Well, this is going to be an easy one for me, for sure. I never played Bang. I've heard a lot about it over
Have
the
you
years.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I still never played it. I know what it is, but compared to the other two, that's an easy burn for me. I have other light games that I think fill that space in my collection, if I remember what Bang is well enough. Welcome to, that was the roll and write that kicked off the roll and write craze, modern roll and write craze. I think it just blew up.
That's another reason to burn it.
JK, it's disdain for roll and writes. I love Welcome to. We have the laminated. We laminate our own sheets and all that. It's in my collection. And Grand Austria Hotel. What do you say about Grand Austria Hotel? But just butter.
Chef's kiss.
Man, chef's kiss. It's something special. Emily's not entertained over here.
Not yet.
We'll win you over one day.
I will give it another
do not
chance.
like that game.
We will win you over.
Emily,
It's-
what about that game hurt you? Point to me on the chart.
I played it with people that love that game, and the staff, I never draw staff in my favor. And there was like one play that I was like, I hate this. And then the second time I tried to play it with an expansion, and I was like, I don't think I was ready for an expansion.
But
So I'm willing to give it another chance, but this is a James decision.
yeah,
What you got for us?
Well, that designer is quickly becoming one of my favorites. Kind of that design group. It's those Italian designers, but Simone Luciani. Of course, I mentioned he did Darwin's Journey and some other games as well that I won't go down the list. But
Magnificent Larry.
Magnificent Larry, Il Magnifico, which has some Grand Austria Hotel DNA in it. Just great game. Definitely, I'm going to go. Keep is Grand Austria Hotel. Play is Welcome to, and burn is the Bullet.
All right.
Bang the Bullet.
Quick trivia on Bang. The first game I ever played with our gaming group when it was pre Gleeful Meeple was Bang.
Nice. All right, and I will close us out. So my 3 games are Uno, The Simpsons Edition, Carcassonne, or Brew Crafters.
Ooh.
So I'm very glad this came up. JK and I were just talking about Brew Crafters before the show. It is a worker placement about making beer.
Uh-huh.
And when I tried it for the first time, I got very overwhelmed. About halfway through the teach, I got very nervous that I was going to suck at the game. But I ended up doing okay, and I'm willing to give it another chance. And I really enjoyed the theme of it all. So I'm going to take that off of Dwayne's hands, and I'm going to own it. Carcassonne, we played it as a game of the show. I enjoyed it. I don't really want to add it to my collection, though. So I'm just going to play that with Dwayne. And I am so sorry. I'm not a fan of Uno. And I have not watched enough Simpsons yet to really enjoy the theme of it. So I'm sorry, Dwayne. We're going to burn your Uno Simpsons edition.
No.
Dope.
So, Dwayne, if you're listening, you no longer own Lacrimosa, Grand Austria Hotel, or Brewcrafters, and
And here's the deluxe Grand Austria Hotel. I got lucky on that
good
one.
one.
I got a good one. Yeah.
and Puerto Rico no longer exists. Bang the Bullet no longer exists, and your precious Uno Simpsons edition no longer exists. So maybe next time you'll think twice about skipping a recording.
Oh, that's harsh.
I'm just kidding. We miss you, Dwayne. Hope you had a great time.
Miss you, buddy. Hope this goes well.
Bring back lots of games from McKay's for us to play.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you for listening. We would like to thank our sponsor, the Opryland Theme Park, home of American music. You can come out today and ride the Wabash Cannonball, the Hangman, the Grizzly River Rampage. Ticket prices right now are low, although hours of operations may be as well. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you listening. If you want to reach out to us, you can email us at pod@gleefulmeeple.com or find us on Instagram at @gleefulmeeplepod. I've been JK.
I'm Emily.
I've been and shall be James.
Yeah. Good night, y'all.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, Gleeples.